Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're going to set this Yevamot stop Sadi Tes. We are going to begin on Sadi Tes Amanal by the very top line. Tanu Rabbanan. Yesh chaylitz le'imo mesafik. It's possible you may end up doing chalitza with your mother in a case of a suffix. So Rashi says, Kegoin Rachel Eshes Yaakov. Let's say you have Yaakov was married to Rachel. Shahayla Yosef Mimenu Bechana Eshes Ruven. Shahayla Chetzrin Mimenu. So basically what happened is that Yaakov and Rachel had a son Yosef, while an unrelated family, Ruven and Chana, had a son by the name of Chetzron. Again, they're not related. So they had these two children, Yosef and Chetzron. It says Rashi, V'chaz v'yoldu shnei zacharim b'machava, and then they end up each having a child like in a cave, namely these two children, we'll call them Levi and Yehuda. So each one of them, they don't know who's the real son, whose son is Levi, and who's the parents of Levi, who's the parents of Yehuda. And then Umesu Yaakov Uruven. So the original men, the husbands, Yaakov, who's married to Rachel, and Reuven, who's married to Chana, they both die. Uvnei Yosef, Uva Yosef benasha Rachel, benasa Chana, Imoishel Chetzron, Bechetzron nasa es Rachel. So each of these two children ended up marrying these respective women. Yosef, again, so Yaakov and Reuven died, so Yosef married Chana, and Chetzron married Rachel. And then Umesu, and then those two guys died, namely Yosef and Chetzron. So basically there's no men left. All you have are these two women left, and these two kids who are complete suffix. V'nafel lifnei hataruvos, Rachel lifnei bana shel Chana, shu achi Chetzron, v'Chana lifnei bana shel Rachel, shu achi Yosef. V'tarshin yadua, mi bana, they don't know whose kid it really is, umi Yevamot, sricha chalitza mishnein. So therefore, both of them need to do chalitza. So this is a situation, again, how it's possible that you could end up doing chalitza with your mother, masafik, because, again, Levi and Yehuda in this picture didn't really know who each other were. So, lachais, back in the Gemara, lachais masafik, using the same type of logic, it's possible that when you have two children that are mixed up from two different families, one can end up doing chalitza with his sister Mesafik. And over here Rashi has a girsa. It says Lachois Mesafik Ketzad Imo B'isha Acher Shiolda Shnei Nekevos. A woman and the mother had two daughters, and it was unclear whose was who. The Amdu Shnei Achim and Av, and two brothers from the father came V'nosum Chaylutz Shteim Nimsa Chaylutz Achas Mesafik. So it's possible that you have to do chalitza with your sister in that situation. Okay. Rashi says, "Va'omdu shnei achin," the two brothers stand, shahayu lazem aviv shalom imo. It has to be that they are only half brothers. They come from the father's side, not from the mother's side. Obviously, that's the only time yibum is possibly done if the brothers are related to the brothers, to the father's side. It's also back in the Gemara levito masafik. And now here the Gemara says, Ketzad. How do we find this situation? Imo v'isha cheres. So you have a woman and another woman. V'lohen shnei zacharim. And they had two kids. V'chazru v'yoldu shnei zacharim b'machiva. And then they had two more kids in a cave. So therefore they knew which one of their sons was, but it was a suffix about this other boy. Uva b'na shel zu. So came the son of one woman. And he married, again they're unrelated, this other woman. So the two Vadai children married each these respective women, Umesu, and then the men died below Banim. So So these two other children who are Safek have to do chalitza for each. So Nimsa as we said, this is a situation where you're doing chalitza possibly to your mom. Again, we just explained what we did already. Imo v'isha cheres. You have a woman and another lady. Shel d'shnei nekevos b'machiva. So the suffix here is with the women. They have two daughters. They don't know whose daughters they are. Uva achehen shlomo oisa aim. And then you had brothers who are not connected to them, but nosum, and they rightfully marry these two girls, umesu b'lobanim. So chayil tzishtein. So they, in this situation, the brothers do chalitza. Nimsa chayletz lachayso masafek. Here, you have to do chalitza masafek because it's possible this is actually your sister. Levita masafek ketzad ish tavisha acheres shel shtei nekevos memacheva. Again, that you end up having a doubt which is your daughter. Other people went and married them. They doubted their children. So again, it's a suffix whether or not this is your daughter. But nonetheless, because of the suffix, because we don't know the status of each of these children, so the din is that chalitza needs to be done. When it says, Rashi says, Isho v'isha acheres, says, Eishes Reuben v'Eishes Kolev, Shol d'shnei nekevos v'macheva nimsas achas bitay. Again, one of them is their daughter, one of them is not, and that's where the whole doubt comes into place. Fine. Chayil sulvita masave Tanya. Hayramer oimer. Ish v'isha. When it comes to a man and woman, pa'amim shimoy lidin chamish umois. Sometimes they could actually have 5 different nations, if you will. So what is this referring to? Ketzad Yisrael shalakach eved v'shivcha min ashuk. Now Yisrael, first of all, he purchased the slave from the marketplace. Now he owns a slave. V'lehen shnei banim. Happens to be that he also has 2 children. V'nis gayer ech mehen, and one of them converts. Nimsa echad ger be'echad avchachavim. So it turns out that one of them is Jewish, one's not. Hit bilon. Let's say the parents immerse themselves l'shem abdos. V'nisku zeh l'zeh. Harikan ger be'avchachavim ve'eved. So now the new kid is an eved. Shichrer es a shivcha. If you free the shivcha, uvo leha eved harikan ger be'avchachavim ve'eved umamzer umamzer. Shicher shneim. You free both of them. This v'hisiyon zeh l'zeh harikan ger be'avchachavim. So my kamash one. So therefore you can possibly have all these different possibilities in your same family. You can have a ger, someone's Jewish, you can have someone not Jewish, you can have a slave, a mamzer in Israel. So my kamash one, the chiddush is blood mamzer. You have an Eved Kachavim who has relations with a Bas Yisrael, the child will be a mamzer. Therefore that's a possibility it'll be in this category. Tadabana. Yesh moicher es aviv. And this is going to end up being question 1. Yesh moicheres aviv. It's possible you can sell the father lahagbois imo ksubasa, in order for the mother to be able to collect her ksuba. So what exactly is this referring to? Let's see. Ketzad Yisrael lokach eved v'shivcha min ashuk v'lehem ben. Let's say Yisrael buys an eved or shivcha from the marketplace, and they have a son. V'shichrer es ha-shivcha, they free the shivcha that they purchased. V'nasa, and the adain marries her. He marries this woman who is a shivcha, now she's free. V'amad, he stands, v'kasav, kol nechasav livna, and he ends up writing all of his possessions to her son. Nimsa, zeh, this son, moicheres aviv, l'hagvais l'imo ksubasa. So it turns out that the son will sell the father to collect the ksuba for the mother. So my kamashmon, kul rameirhi. Really, it's all like rameir. The avda metaltali, that an eved has the same status as metaltali. Metaltali mishubad ksuba, and therefore this eved is mishubad to the ksuba. V'imoy seima hakamashmon avda kimikarkoi dami. That it's going to come to tell you that an eved has the same status as karka. Says Rashi, kul rameir he nechasav. V'kasav v'kol nechasav u'meis. Har imo tovas ksubasa min hanechasav. So the woman is allowed to collect the ksuba from him. So Rashi says, Hamastis embrace the Diesh Moich Rameir Nami Amra, but save the Kamaisahi, Mishum Hakikatani Evan Mishubal Ksuba. The Rameir Sabra Mataltal Mishabdil Ksuba, Masakta Ksubas, fine. So the Chiddush is that even though an Eved is Mataltalin, nonetheless, he holds it's Mishubal to the Ksuba. Or it's just coming to tell you that an Eved is Karka and it's Mishubal to the Ksuba. Question 1. Tanaban. Yesh moichas aviv ligvois imo ksubasa. Kate say so lokach eben b'shivcha have ben my kamash malan. So again, the chiddush is question 1. The matalta mishubola miksuba or the abde kibit karkoi dami. Okay. Let's look at question TA22, which is literally the same thing. Sadi Testament Aleph. Ta'im eved mishubad l'ksuba umazet toli. So, im abde kibit karkoi mishubad. If an eved is like land, it's mishubad to the ksuba, but it's metaltal and it's totally, if you hold, the metalton is mishubad to a ksuba. So everyone holds karka is mishubad to a ksuba. The machlokas is metalton also mishubad to a ksuba. So it's the same question really as question 1. So was TA22. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, another challenging case. Ta'isha shinis arev vlada bevlad kalata. A woman whose child got mixed up with the child of the daughter-in-law. So it's explained like this. You have Rachel and Yosef in Yaakov, this couple. They end up having 3 children. They married and they had kids. Reuven, Yosef, and Binyamin. Now Reuven gets married to someone else, to Chana. And they have a child. They have 2 children, Chanach v'Chetzron. Then there's 2 children, Levi and Yehuda, that got mixed up, and we don't know who the parents are. Is it from Rachel and Yaakov, or is it from Reuben and Chana? So in that situation, if the men die, so Chanach and Chetzron will do chalitza with both, but it's a suffix because it may be his uncle's wife. And therefore, because of that, only chalitza is done. Higdilu hataruvos v'nasu nashim umei. So let's say, again, what happened was these kids who got mixed up, we'll call them Levi and Yehuda, we don't know who's the parents, and then they end up getting married, and then they die. B'nei hakala, so the sons of the daughter-in-law, chotzim lo miyamin. Shu safek eishes achiv, safek eishes achi aviv. It could possibly be your brother's wife. It could be your father's brother's wife. Fine. B'nei hazakena, the sons of the mother-in-law, o chotzin o miyamin. For that same matter, it's a question, but we say you could even do yibum. Shu safek eishes achiv, the eishes ben achiv, because the whole suffix is, it's either Eishes Achav, it's your brother's wife, that certainly is where Yibum takes place. But even if it's Eishes Ben Achiv, if it's your brother's son's wife, which is your niece, that is an acceptable relationship. And therefore, Mamanav Shach, you can do Yibum. Meisu HaKsherim, let's say the Ksherim, those the regular kids, they had Reuven, Yosef, and Binyamin, the ones that we know about. So at Teruvos, Livnei Hazakena Chotzin Lo Miyamin. In that case, because these kids are suffix, Shu suffix Eishes Achiv, Eishes Achi Aviv, Livnei Kala Echad Chayil. Fine, and therefore, because of that, they are only do chalitza. However, Livnei Kala Echad Chalitz VeEchad Miyamin. If it's the children of the daughter-in-law, then one can do chalitza, the other one does yibum. Okay. Some, again, confusing cases, but that's the case of the Mishnah. And then we have Kohenishnis Arev Vlada Bevlad Shevchasa. So you have a woman who is a Kohenes, and then you have on the other who has a child, and then you have a Shivcha who has a child, and those two get mixed up. So they're allowed to eat truma. Says Rashi, Echad Kayin, Vechad Eved Kayin. Because this Shivcha, it's Shivcha Sa, it's her Shivcha, which means she's still living in the house of the Kohanim. So therefore, Truma is still allowed to be eaten. However, Chok and Chelk Echad Begoyrin. We're going to see that they both aren't able to get their own separate portions. Only one portion is allowed to be taken as we continue the Tzadi Tes Amid Beis. And however, because it's the suffix, the status, the Ein and Metamin Lamesin, they're not allowed to become, this Kayin cannot become tummy to them, because you can become tummy if it's your son, but not if it's a Shivcha. So because that suffix Toma is not allowed to become tummy to them, they noisin nashim The bigger problem is they can't get married, these people. One is the daughter of one is a child of a shivcha, one's a child of a kohenes, being shares being psulos. Because Mamonavshach, a shivcha can't marry a kohen, so if it's a suffix as to who it is, they can't do it. Higdilu hataruvos, let's say they grew up, vishichru zed zeh, and they decide to free each other. So therefore, even it's a suffix that I'm the son of a maidservant, let's say now I'm freed. So noisim nashim uruyas l'kahuna. They're allowed to actually even get married to people that are fit to kahuna, says Rashi, v'lo gerusha v'chalutz mishum kohen, which means because it's a possibility that one of his kids is a kohen, so therefore he can't marry gerusha. Ve'ena matam l'mesim, still they cannot be a matam l'mesim. Ve'ena matam l'mesim because we're masafik. These guys, one of them is a kohen. Ve'im nitmu in sefing harboyim. But if let's say they do become tamei, we're not going to give malchus, because each one could say, I'm not the kohen, I'm no, right? And therefore, as Rashi says in parentheses, is hasra suffik. Hasra suffik is l'shmi hasra. Ve'in an oichen truma, and it says that they do not eat truma. Ve'im achol ein mishalmin keren v'chaimish. However, if they do eat, we're not going to punish them, because each one will say that I'm a kohen. So when you want to say it works in your favor, I'm a kohen. When you're not in your favor, you're not a kohen. Ve'en achol ken al goyren. And they do not divide up in the silo to get their truma, because one of them may not be a kohen. Umayich, when it's a truma, they sell the truma, v'hadomim sholhen, and the money and the value of the money is there. It says Rashi, in srichin latita l'kohen. He doesn't have to give it to the kohen. The chol chad oimer l'kohen. Everyone could say to the kohen that wants to take that money, I see right to love kohen ana ushkoil. Prove that I'm not a kohen. I'm telling you I'm a kohen. We don't want them to eat it because, again, one of these guys is not a kohen. So therefore, instead, we sell it and you can keep the money. We don't have them divide up, let's say, the hides of kodshim. Again, because one of them is not a kohen. We're not going to give them kodshim to be makriv. However, we're not going to take it out of their hands, says Rashi. Let's say they're trying to bring a carbon, an oila. We don't say that, no, you have to give it to the mishmor. The hides go to them. Each one will say, no, it's mine. I'm a kohen. Skipping a few lines. But this mixture, this question, is this person from a kohen or from a shivcha? The basin doesn't have the ability to get rid of it. They're mark of their karbanos. It's given to them. Not that they should use it, but they should give it to whoever they want. You can get a shliach. Okay. Lashon acher Iker, says Rashi, the ein nois lahem kedashim b'machor, the charomim kaimer. We're talking specifically about a carbon b'chor. We don't give it over to them. Vein moitzin eshulahem yadam. We don't take it away. Okay. Back in the Mishnah, vein moitzin shulahem yadeim. V'pturim min hazroim and achaim min akeva. They're putter from taking off the mop on the jaw, because again, it's possible or suffix gets a kain. If they have a bechor, they should let it graze until it gets a mum. The nice love chomri kohanim v'chomri yisraelim. So basically, as we said, we take upon themselves certain stringencies, like a kain, sometimes like a Yisrael, because of this suffix. So says the Gemara, Meisu haksherim. So going back to the Reish of the Mishnah, let's say the ksherim elahanach mishum di ariv ulahavilu psulim. That's not a very nice language. So these are kosher, and the people that got mixed up, you don't know their status, they're apostle, they just don't know who they are. It's a hard language to say about them. So Papa ema umesu havadoyin. It means the children that you knew for a fact are related, are the kids of these parents. they're the ones that die. And we say this many times, that if you're going to do chalitza and yibum, it has to be in that order. Dafka michlitz v'hadi yevume. First you have to do chalitza, then yibum. But yibum b'reish lo de kapagam b'yavam shuk. If you do yibum, not because if misafik, you may have done yibum with the wrong woman, and then all of a sudden the yavama is l'shuk. Kayin shenis arev. So chelik echad pshita. It says that they can only get one portion of truma. That's obvious. So chelik ki echad. What is tanan? What does that mean? Command armor in chokin truma eved elim kin rabbi ima. That the only time you're allowed to give to the eved is only if his master is present. Tisanya in chokin truma eved elim kin rabbi imoy. It's important that the master needs to be there so that when you give the truma, no one's going to think that this person that you're giving truma to is a Kohen, because it's an Eved. So the only way you're allowed to do it is only if the master is present. Dibra Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Amar Yochel says, no, you can still give it to him even without the presence of the guy. Shomer, because he's going to say, Im Kohen ani tunuli b'shvil atzmi. It's a suffix. So maybe I'm a Kohen, so give it to me because I'm a Kohen. Im Eved Kohen ani tunuli b'shvil Rabbi. So give it to me because you're giving it to me on behalf of my master. So what's the whole problem? You can have this in Mamanav Shach. So the Gemara says, "Bim kaimashor bihuda hoyimal mitrumul yochsen. Bim kaimashor Rabbi Yossi lo hoyimal mitrumul yochsen." So the whole difference and why it could potentially be an issue is that if we would give truma to this person, people are going to think, oh, he's a regular Kohen, and therefore we'll be able to give him all the rules and all the laws apply to him. And therefore we don't give truma to an Eved because of the perception that people will make a mistake and think that this person is really a Kohen. Question 2. Kohenishnis are vlad bevlad shevchasa, hari elu oichen betruma v'cholken chelk echad begarin. Ma pirish cholken chelk echad begarin, uma hatam. So as we said, the answer is the ein cholken zeh beloy zeh el im. It's hard for me to read this answer, so I have another one here. El im boyin ke'echad. Only if they come together. Because otherwise, if he comes, people are going to think that this Eved is really good. Fine. Based on the machlokas, whether mal mitrumul yochsen. Tanya. Amar Belazar ben Sadik. Miyomai in all my days lo he'adti el edus echad. I only gave one form of testimony. And when I did that, v'he'elu eved l'kahuna alpi, because I saw this Eved eating truma, I made a huge mistake, and all of a sudden, people, because of that, I said that he's a regular Kohen. So that was a mistake that I made. So Gemara says, "Helu salgadakta, did you really make him into a Kohen? Hash behemtem shel sadikim." In a Kadosh Baruch Hu, maybe to kala yadon, Hashem will not even cause a downfall or a problem for an animal. Sadikim atzma lo kol shekain. So certainly when we're talking, Rashi says Chamar shel Pinchas ben Yair, the famous story of the donkey of Pinchas ben Yair. So certainly Sadikim, they're not going to make such a mistake. Hashem's not going to allow them to make such a mistake. El ema bikshu lalois eved l'kuhun alpi. I wanted to do it. However, why Chazab Asid Rav Yossi? I saw this take place in Rav Yossi's city. And I went and gave Eidos in the city of Rabbi Yehuda. So I saw it in Rav Yossi's city, but Rav Yossi is lo hoyumal and mitrumul yochsen. Okay, turn about on. Asar in cholchen hen truma. There are 10 people we do not give truma to in the silos. And these are the individuals that we do not do this to. This is going to be a question. So let me just get to it. This is going to be TA. Kohenishus Arev. Maybe it is a TB question. TB 23. Madua ein cholken truma begarin lechereshat v'katan madua ein cholken leisha. Okay, so this is going to be TB 23. TB 23. So There are 10 people that we do not give truma in the basic gronos. Ve'elhein. Chershad v'katan, a tumtum v'androgynous, people that you don't know their physical status, v'even, a slave, v'isha, a wife, v'arel v'hatame, someone who is an arel, that does not have a bris meal, and someone who is tame. V'noisei isha she'en hogenes lo, or someone who marries a woman who is not befitting of him. Rashi says it means she's psula kahuna, she's invalid to the kahuna. V'kulan mishargun lehem levateim, and all of them can be sent to their homes. Says Rashi, v'oichlin, and they can be eaten there. V'oral she'asu le'echol machol nashav avodav. Even though he's not allowed to eat, because in oral, he can still give it to his wife and to his servants. When it comes to someone who's tameh, the Gemara is going to explain why, and also someone who, again, married a woman who's pasal the kahuna, so we don't give it at all for their house. So this is very simple. We don't give because la b'nei de'inhu, because they're not b'nei de'ah. Says Rashi, so what? B'zilusa de truma, it's disgraceful. L'chalkahen begarin la'ein koil. To give this in front of all these people, it's something which is a disgrace to the holiness of truma. Tumtum androgynous nami. What's the problem? As we say to continue in Kuf Amud Aleph. What's the problem with that? So when it comes to tumtum androgynous, we say they're like considered to be different people. And Rashi says v'havi zalus of the kachim. It's embarrassing. It's lowly to do. Evan nami dilma asil asukim and truma yochsin, which is what we said before. According to this, we don't want the evan to be elevated. Orel v'tami mishum demiise. It's considered to be like repulsive to give it to them. It's a kanas. The fact that you marry this woman who you shouldn't have, so as a penalty you cannot collect truma. El isha my time alo. What's the problem? Why can't you give it to a woman? So pligi ba Rapapa Rav Huna Berei Rav Yeshua. Chad Omer Mishum Garusha. The Chad Omer Mishum Yichud. This is the Gemara we had before. Either because of, let's say, a Garusha, namely, let's say she's Yisrael, married to a Kohen. So once she gets divorced, she's no longer allowed to eat Truma. So if we start giving it to her while she's married, she'll end up still collecting it afterwards. Or Mishum Yichud. Namely, that the Garin could be a place where women should not go because it could be inappropriate for them because they could be alone with a man. So my benayu beidari, a threshing floor, demikarev lamasa, which is close to a city. However, v'lo shchichi b'hu inshi, there's not a lot of people there. So since it's close to the city, but there's not a lot of people there. So in that situation, says Rashi, mishim gerusha leka do samachol masahu v'yedila igerusha. Since it's close to the city, people are going to know, you're my next door neighbor, you're divorced, you can't eat this. But it's a place where there's not a lot of people, so therefore it's still an issue of yichud. The other possibility is that it's far away, and therefore people are not going to know if she was divorced. However, there's so many people there, then there will not be an issue of yichud. So that would be the nafkamina, but again, we're just saying that they fall into the category of 10 people that are not allowed to eat truma. However, as we said, v'kul mishargun lehen l'vatein, and we're going to see the exceptions and the reason for those exceptions on tomorrow's daf.